All right, welcome to another episode of Ranting and Raving. So, this continues our series looking at the 2025 draft. And I am also apparently joined by Midas, more black and gold greatness. Hi, my. Yes, you're very important. You're the star of the show. Actually, the star of the show today is going to be the tight end class. So, uh, you've probably heard that this isn't a great draft class because that's all over the media. Really depends on what positions you look at and how you define that. This class probably doesn't have as many sure thing blue chip guys, just kind of across the board, as some other classes do. Um, but there's several positions where it has not only incredible depth, but incredible quality depth, and a number of players who very well could turn into great players around the league. And and some of these positions you're probably going to see it two, three, even 4 or 5 rounds deep into the draft. Tight end is one of those spots. To me, it's tight end, running back, and edge are the three spots where you can believably find like really good value in this year's draft all the way throughout. So today we're going to talk about tight end. So no further gilding the lily. Let's go ahead and get right into it. And I'm actually going to start with the guy, to me, probably personally the most polarizing prospect in this class. So let's get the most important thing out of the way first. Tyler Warren is a really, really, really good tight end prospect. The question around Tyler Warren is he's getting top 10 buzz. Brock Bowers went top 10 last year. Brock Bowers was a generational talent. Brock Bowers probably goes top 10 in a lot of years, regardless of the depth or quality of the class. I'm not sure you can say that about Tyler Warren. Not because I don't think he's super talented and not because I don't think he won't be a very good NFL player, simply because there are questions with him we just don't have answers to. So Warren's usage was really weird. Um, I don't mean that in a bad way. He gets reverses and tosses and ends arounds and screens and got schemed up in a good amount too. He also does the chain mover stuff, the digs, the outs, the curls, et cetera, on you know short, intermediate yardage. He's 6'6", 255. We're rounding. Prototypical size, really good athlete, not like extraordinary athlete, but tight end is also a position where like your 40 matters, but it doesn't matter that much. Your three cone matters a good amount. Your 10-yard split matters decently. What really matters with tight end, especially for like a receiving tight end, are like A, hands, and B, movement skills. Like how fluid are you in space? The more fluid the player is, the more likely they are to have success as a receiving tight end, just because you have that big body moving in space, and you don't need to run a 4.40. When you're 6'6", 255, once you get going downfield, like once you've got that momentum behind you, you're a stiff arm away. Like you're stiff arming a guy who's got 40 pounds less than you, probably, less than that. Like you're getting to safeties. Like that's what's going to happen. And so it's just, I don't care if he runs a 4.7 or a 4.5. And I like a 4.5 again at that size and weight, amazing. We're not even going to talk 40s for this position group because just to a large degree, I don't care. Warren is not a blow you away athlete, but he's a pretty good athlete. My biggest concern with him is he's a little bit stiff to me. He's really good north south. He's really good at like planting and changing direction, but he's not fluid. And he doesn't, I didn't see enough of him winning on routes and getting himself open to put him in that Brock Bowers category of this is a complete player who does everything well, that you really don't have any questions about. You plug him, you play him, you're set. Doesn't mean he can't be a great player, just means he's a guy you better have a vision for him and you better put him into a roster and with a quarterback that is best going to take advantage of his very real skill set and talent. He's certainly a gimme player for me. Like he's a guy I see him more as like a late first round guy, top of the second round guy than like a top 10 guy. So like for top 10 is he a gimme guy? Probably not because the way that, scale works. If there's other guys who are in that same class who you have graded higher, you take them first. And for me there's guaranteed to be guys available at 9 who I have graded higher than Tyler Warren. The other part of it is, as we're going to go through here, because this could easily be 15 guys, we're only going to go through 8 today. This is a really deep tight end class. And I don't think he's the best tight end in this class. And I think you could argue he's the fourth best tight end in this class as far as pro prospect. Now, he could also end up being the best pro, but purely as a prospect, um, like I just see him as a joker, as a chess piece type of guy. I see him as like he's an impact player, but I have too many questions about what he can do and how he does it to just be like stamp him top 10 instant impact player for your offense. But by no means a bad player. By no means a guy where you're like, ugh, bust. I just have questions. I just have some questions. Next guy on the list, complete opposite end of the spectrum. This is a guy I have questions about, but in a very different way. So, Fannin Jr., 6'3", 240, definitely doesn't have the prototypical size that a guy like Warren has or a lot of the other guys on the list have. Fannin is one of two guys we're going to talk about today. This guy is a receiver, purely a receiver. I'm not saying he doesn't try to block. This guy's a receiver. And what a receiver he was. Incredibly productive year. Yes, lower level competition, all of that. The volume and the way he produced at that volume says a lot. Like even within the context of lower level of competition, blah 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 blah. There are some questions with him. A about the size. Being able to be a tight end. Work the middle, do the things you're going to expect a tight end to do. Does he have the frame for it? Can he take the punishment? Can he block? Um, is he an explosive enough athlete to offset? Being a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. I think he is. He's not a guy I would be targeting in the first 2 rounds. I think there's enough questions around him. I would not, especially for the Saints, be looking at Harold Fannin Jr. before the 3rd round simply because the risk factor of him busting out or taking 2 to 3 years to really round into shape and become an impact player is too high. But he's also a guy where some other teams in some different situations, especially at the quarterback position, they could be looking at him in the 2nd round and see a guy who is an immediate instant impact player for them and not be wrong. Um, very, very talented guy. You know, not like crazy explosive athlete, but I see him being immediately impactful as a receiver. Um, and he is in particular impressive once the ball's in his hands. I talked about that ability to move in space, fluidity, especially at size, certainly has those elements. He is a guy who can make things happen once the ball is in his hands. The next guy on the list is actually my second favorite tight end in the draft. Uh, Arguably. So he's not the guy I want the most, but I think he would be the best possible pick for the Saints. The Saints need a tight end in the worst of ways. They need a young, talented tight end. I mean, ideally, they need a young, talented tight end to work with their young, talented quarterback. or quarterbacks, but we're stuck with the grumpy bum from Fresno. But whatever, we're not going to talk about him today. Mason Taylor had a good college career, not a transcendent college career, a good college career. He is going to be a way better pro than he was in college. And he was pretty damn good in college. 6'5", 250. But the big thing with him is, again, I talked about movement skills. It's not how fast he runs, although he's plenty fast. It's not how explosive he is. He's a plenty good enough athlete. He moves like he's 30 or 40 pounds lighter than he is. His body control, balance, his ability to change his center of gravity, like going in and out of cuts, bending his knees, bending his hips, moving through like all of those little like micro movements lead to control, lead to shifts, lead to better routes, all those things. His transitions in and out of breaks, that component is really, really impressive. And then he's got fantastic hands and he's really, really physical. I think he's going to be a fantastic pro, and specifically for Kellen Moore and what Kellen Moore wants to do. I think Mason Taylor walks in and is a really close approximate to what Dallas Goddard is in Philly with a way higher ceiling. And I think he's that good. Um, I think again, he's my second favorite, like just guy I would love to have on the team, most fun guy for me for the Saints. Um, but as far as like best draft pick, this is a guy. If he's there at 40, like if they took Warren at 9, obviously, like you're not gonna probably not gonna double dip a tight end that way. But assuming like they take Tet or they take a defensive player, or I don't think Genty's gonna be there, but they Genty or whatever they do. Like if he's there at 40, I think it's almost impossible to resist that. He's that good. Um, One of the cleanest quote unquote gimme guys in this draft to me. Next on the list, so Mitchell Evans was the only reason he's not a gimme for me is really more just because of the round level I have him. So anything after the third round, it's almost it's not impossible, but it's almost impossible for me to call a guy a gimme because I view everything after the third round as a lottery ticket. Um, what's really interesting, so Mitchell Evans, I think would probably be higher on the list in a weaker tight end class. Now, it's not that I think he's a great player who's just pushed down by the ton of talent. I think he's a really solid tight end prospect. Um, I think he's a guy, not stylish. Like I look at him as he's Josh Hill. If Josh Hill was the type of receiver Sean always hoped he would evolve into. Hill might be a little bit better athlete than Evans, but it's pretty comparable. 6'6", 258. Like he's got the size, he's got the strength. He's not explosive. He's not a big play guy. He's not dynamic in the field, but he's not uncoordinated. He's not unbalanced. He's not stiff. He's got really good hands. He's very physical. He's a really good blocker. Like he's the type of guy where like you take a Mason Taylor at 40. And if Mitchell Evans is somehow there in the fifth round, you do consider double dipping because now you have two guys who can both do a bit of everything, but who have very clear specializations. And you now becomes instantly a major strength of the offense. Major strength of the offense. Um, are they going to do that? Probably not. But he's a guy to me. He is a classic glue guy, but because he's that kind of guy, and because like he is a good chain mover, he's that type of player. Like if you have dynamic, like big play receivers, like dynamic running backs, and you just need a tight end that can give you like 6 to 9 catches a game for somewhere between 45 and 90 yards, maybe a touchdown, but like they're just incredibly reliable. That's Mitchell Evans. And do not underestimate how wildly valuable that is to an NFL offense. So, not a guy I would take super, super high just because of the talent threshold, but also the depth of the class. But in those later rounds, if he's there, you jump on him. I think he's an incredibly useful player. I just don't think he's got star potential. Now, watch him go make like 6 Pro Bowls and make me look like an idiot. um, that's kind of how I see Mitchell Evans. Um, I kind of saved him for a little bit later because it's this is the biggest no brainer. So 6'6", 250. Again, we're rounding. Colson Loveland's the best tight end in this class. Not my favorite, but he's the best tight end in this class. Like he's the most complete block, run, catch radius. Big plays, crazy catches. You know, athleticism. All the different elements of that. Not just 40 time, but speed, fluidity, in and out of breaks, strength, application of strength. Like you go down the list, like he's that guy. Doesn't mean like he's without flaws. Like Warren's probably Warren's a good bit more physical, but Loveland's a way better athlete than Warren is to me. When I watch them play, or at least a different athlete. Like he's more explosive, more sudden, definitely more fluid. I think he's clearly the best tight end in the draft. And personally, I think he's going at 20. If he's there at 20, I think Sean Payton's going to draft him, and I think it's going to be a problem. That's my easy prediction for Colston Loveland. If in hypothetical the Saints were to trade down from 9 and be picking somewhere 14 to 18 range, somewhere like that, he's a guy I'd love to draft, especially while picking up additional draft capital. He's really, really, really talented. A little bit on, again, kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. So Gunnar Helm is not the best tight end in this draft, but he's one of these guys, kind of like Mitchell Evans, but the polar opposite of Mitchell Evans. So Mitchell Evans is very much that like kind of little bit more skilled Josh Hill type. Like he's that glue guy. Gunnar Helm is more of like Mark Andrews. He's a little bit under athletic, and that's going to get held against him. He's a little bit light in the pads, 240 versus a lot of these guys are in the 250s, but like he can put on 8 pounds. Like that won't be a problem. NFL weight room, he'll be fun. He's not a crazy good athlete. In fact, he's a decent bit slower than a lot of these guys. Again, already said my piece about 40. I'm not going to beat a dead horse over and over on that specific thing. You notice he's a gimme guy. Got a third round grade on him. Here's why. If you address other positions first, now we have 2 third round picks and 2 fourth round picks. If you're addressing other positions higher, like you absolutely should be leaving this draft with a running back and a tight end, and really a running back, a tight end, and an edge because those are the deepest spots. And the Saints need all three because they need literally everything. Um, he's a guy. He can win a little bit off of routes, but he has an incredible natural feel for space. Um, he's a good enough athlete to make explosive plays and big plays and definitely to make teams pay. But one of the really things I like about him, and it's part of what I see the Mark Andrews element is good good hands, good size, good, not great but good in a lot of areas. He has a really good sense of space and for sitting in zones, and he also has really high end movement skills. Like once the ball's in his hands and he turns upfield, he's good at making guys miss and extending plays and getting yards after the catch. And a lot of times even more than you would necessarily expect him to be able to get, just from the design of the play. Um, Not a guy I would take over, some of the other guys in this class, but like in that mid round range, this is an easy, really, really, really high quality consolation prize, if you want to put it like that. Rondé Gadsden. So I mentioned earlier Fannin. So Gadsden is he's they're the same guy. Not exactly identical players, but they're the same guy. This is another. Now he's 6'5" instead of 6'3", and that does help you, with jump balls, the verticality, some of those elements. Um, this is a wide receiver, essentially, with a really big body, that plays from an inline position and a flex as a tight end. Um, I really like Gadsden. I think he's really polished as a receiver, as a route runner. I like his hands. Again, I keep bringing up all these guys I'm talking about. It's a great class, so it's pretty consistent for most of these guys. Like they're fluid in space. Like really, only Warren and Mitchell aren't, and that's still like a relative thing. Like he probably needs to put on a little bit of weight, especially to handle some of the over the middle stuff. But he's a guy. If he goes to an offense with a quarterback who knows that the middle of the field exists, not Derek Carr, and an offensive coordinator who understands how to create space for tight ends to operate in, he could have an extremely impactful rookie season and be a really impactful player for a team for a long time. He's not a guy that I see evolving into a star. The guys for that are Loveland, Warren, um, Taylor. I actually think could be a really, really like a household name in a couple of years. And the next guy we're going to talk about here in just a second, who is actually my favorite tight end in this class. Um, But yeah, Gadsden is a guy. If you're once you're getting into those mid rounds, like this is a guy you pick him up and you're probably getting an impactful receiver that's a big help for your passing game right away. So who's my favorite tight end in this class? Elijah Arroyo. So has that ideal size, 6'5", 250. He's a gimme guy for me. Really, I would have him in the first round. The only reason he's not a first round grade for me is simply because I wouldn't take him at 9, and it's hard to put him over Warren, partially because of the hype, but also just because like it's a different archetype. Like he's more of Loveland's archetype, but he's not as good of a blocker. Like Loveland's better than him. Loveland's the best tight end in the class. I'm not in love with Warren, but I think Warren's still a slightly better prospect. But I don't like Warren more. Elijah Arroyo is my favorite prospect in this draft. Him and Mason Taylor are neck and neck for me of the two guys I would most want the Saints to draft at 40. If either of them are available at 40, I'm taking them. Personally, I'm taking Arroyo over Mason Taylor. I think Mason Taylor is probably the better fit for Kellen Moore's offense and what the Saints need. I think neither of them matter because Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback and he doesn't know the middle of the field exists, so whatever. But you're also not drafting for the one last season Derek Carr is here, if he's even here. You're drafting for the next 5, hopefully 10. Elijah Arroyo is that guy. So here's the easy comparison that many Saints fans, and if the Saints were to draft him, I'm sure the media, thank God he didn't used to play basketball, or at least I don't think he did. Um, it's because he went to Miami. It's really easy to go, oh, he's Jimmy Graham. He's not Jimmy. He's not 6'7", but he's also he's a different athlete than Jimmy. So I'm actually going to compare him to a different All Pro tight end. When I watch Elijah Arroyo, I see a lot of Travis Kelce. He has a shiftiness. He's got a wiggle, but also a rhythm in space that is very reminiscent of prime Travis Kelce. He I said earlier, my biggest concern with Warren is, can he win on his own? Can he get himself open, or does he need the offense to manufacture that? Once the ball's in his hand, he does dynamic things. That's known, that's quantified, no issue. But can you create that opening consistently? That is a question for me. That is not a question with Elijah Roy. Really impressive route running for a guy his size. Really impressive, damn near everything for a guy his size. He's incredibly smooth. He is a dynamic athlete. He is explosive. Does run fast. Really good hands. Like, I see this guy having an opportunity to come into the league and be a star damn near immediately. As with any prospect, a lot of that depends on what team does he land on. Team quarterback situation, etc. Like, that's going to have a huge impact. But like, he's the type of guy at the tight end position who can make bums look good. Like, to me, I think he's going to be that good. And if you had, hypothetically, a Dart or my preference, Shador at 9, or my real preference, Rattler, take a shot this year. If it doesn't work out, you get a high pick next year in a better class. You can go through those hypotheticals. You draft a guy like this to go with the rest of the roster, and you pick up a running back in this draft too, and you go from one of the least explosive, least dynamic, least impressive offenses in the league instantly to a really, really scary unit. And by the way, when you have weapons who can consistently and reliably win on their own, your offensive line looks better too. Did you know that? It's amazing. It's almost like, 11 on 11, it's a team sport and all these different components like affect each other or something. It's very odd. But yeah, I couldn't be higher on Elijah Arroyo. Really, really, really like him as a prospect. Movement skills, balance, strength, play strength. Like, he plays to his size, isn't just big for nothing. Um, really good ball skills, great with the ball in his hands. Yeah, easily a draft day guy. Um, like, if this again, same thing with, like I mentioned with the other guy. Like, if we traded down, like, let's say you traded down from 9. Just I'll pull like mock draft simulator bullshit. You trade from 9 to 14, and then you trade again from like 14 to like 27, and you just stack second and third round picks. I would take Elijah Arroyo at 27 in a nanosecond, like, without blinking, instant draft. Not taking him at 9. Even though, like, personally, I like him more than Warren. Like, it's just not realistic. But to me, favorite tight end of the draft. Tell me you guys' thoughts. Who's your favorite tight end in the draft? I know there's a bunch of guys. Again, it's a really deep class that I didn't mention. Doesn't mean they're not good. Just means I didn't watch them. So I'm not going to say anything about guys I haven't watched. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. Do the whole YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe if you feel like it. Always appreciate it. Helps the channel grow. And we'll be back with more draft content coming here soon.